As we head up the north branch of the river, you'll see on our left side a red brick building. This is one of the oldest buildings on this branch of the river. This is called the North Cold Storage Warehouse, and it was a giant icebox for perishables in the 1890s. It was originally built in 1898 and converted into condos, and you can see that the windows were added later. The condos were added, and it took about 2 years for this conversion to happen from a warehouse to a condo unit, so that by 1981, the residences opened for occupants. Now, to clean out this building, they had to haul out horsehair and pork remains, which was used as insulation before we got the typical insulation that we use today, like fiberglass. Now, what's interesting about the river here is that as this is a very industrial part of the river, so we're going to see a number of warehouses as we move up the river, and you can see the encroachment of gentrification where larger buildings are being built, and of course, you can see with those comes open space. The city created requirements through ordinances that anyone who is to build or occupy buildings here and renovate them has to include a setback to allow for pedestrians walking through and using the uh, the banks of the river. So the banks of the river are actually public spaces. And you can see that anytime you build a new building that you have to get approval for a certain amount of feet that is left open for walkways and pedestrian friendly areas. This is very important because this has made the river, just as Daniel Burnham planned it in 1909, to be a very friendly river, not just one used by industry, but one that is also used by the public. Now, as we go by the Kinsey Bridge, one of our early mayors of the city, I want to pause for a moment because this is a great view as we sit here on the boat to the looking, comparing the buildings to the right, to the left, the land use and the buildings. If you look to the right, you will see the East Bank Club. When the East Bank Club was built, the river was really discounted as an asset for the city. It was something that was contaminated and not something that we had a lot of development yet on. And so the back of the East Bank Club really goes right up to the river's edge and doesn't take advantage of being on the river's bank. And you can see some recent trees that they're trying to fix up and utilize the backside of the East Bank Club. The East Bank Club is a very large exercise, high-end facility that is frequented by many people. However, you would come into that facility and never encounter the river. Now look to the left, and you're going to have to let the boat go farther up and go around the flag because the winds have shifted, and so has our boat. And so you have to walk around and take a look at the housing establishment on the left. As we go by it, you can see it is completely in opposition to how the East Bank Club was built. And this housing establishment is a gated community. It is a newer community, and you can see off to the left also kind of it's settled right into the midst of a very industrial area. It is a pedestrian friendly. You can see that the homes face the river with a sidewalk and little lawns and trees, and so you can see that these are two very different views of the river and how the river either contributes or takes away from what they've planned for the uses of these buildings. As we move forward, this is a very industrial area of the river's use and historical use. This is the area where we had a lot of large industrial warehouses. And so off to the left, as we come to the next bridge, we're going to go and see the Chicago Tribune building. And this is a very large building where printing presses would come in and actually print the paper copies of the Chicago Sun-Times, formerly the Chicago Daily News and now the Chicago Trib. This area has a master plan for urban redevelopment that is occurring, and so we will see over the next 5 to 7 years tremendous retail, commercial, and residential mixed-use development taking place here. As we go underneath the next bridge off to the right, again, you can see the telltale signs after the Grand Avenue Bridge of gentrification. You can see the reuse of this red brick building here as a factory building that was built, and the telltale signs of the iron black balconies and the windows that were placed on it. This is in contrast to the newer buildings that we just saw in the townhouses that were built and actually embracing the river. We are now traveling forward, and soon we will be on the other side of the river where you will see the Chicago Tribune building off to our left, and a very famous building I want to talk about, the Montgomery Ward building. Montgomery Ward came here as a salesman, and he was selling our urban goods that were made here as well as transported here from Chicago into the rural communities. And we were a large mail order facility, both for Sears and for Montgomery Ward. Now, this is the early days before Amazon got started, so we would print large catalogs, and Montgomery Ward, as a salesman, would go out and leave them with the different families in the farmlands. And so he decided that instead, he would cut out the middleman, and instead of being a salesman, that he would actually house the materials in a large warehouse and sell them directly to the rural customers. And so we're going to see up here some of the changes that have taken place. Now, Montgomery Wards, and you can see here is Montgomery Ward Park off to the right that has been reused and revitalized into parkland, grassy parkland, and the encroachment of very large buildings and residential in combination with older factories. You could see here on the right a water tower from the former days before the Chicago fire, where we were very concerned about fires, and so these large water towers are throughout, these big black large water towers are throughout the city. But as we turn the corner here by the Chicago Tribune building, we are going to come upon the Montgomery Ward old administrative building, which is now housing, and then his large warehouse. And inside of this warehouse, he would have all of his products, and it is said that he would include roller skaters to fill this. You could see kayakers coming by and different wildlife. And so this river has become, even in the industrial corridor here, more and more revitalized and is coming back to health. Rivers can actually regenerate themselves as long as the contamination stops. The pollution in rivers is contained in their sediments. And so by 1972, we had the EPA and Congress actually supporting and passing the Clean Water Act. And so what has happened is we starting to see a self-healing of the waters and the sediments in the river. Our river is still not designated as swimmable or fishable, but you can see that it is healing itself over time. And we have now got a different definition and use of the river, which is much more integrated into our recreational and quality of life, more than just industry, business, and navigation. And so the river is indeed healing itself. Here to the right is the administrative building of Montgomery Ward that I mentioned that is now condos. This is considered an Art Deco building, and you can see the triangles on the bottom. But again, when this building was built, they didn't have a setback. They did not incorporate the river into the daily lives of the workers. And so now there is some retrofitting going on, trying to get this new housing unit, which was the old administrative building of the Montgomery Ward Company, and have the river integrated more. As we pass through this bridge, you can see the massive old Montgomery Ward warehouse, and you will see construction taking place on the other side of the Chicago Avenue Bridge of the warehouse, making it into retail, commercial, and residential areas. Off to the left, you still see some of the best remnants of the city's use of the river for industrial planning. Now, in front of us, and as we turn the boat, you will see a man-made island called Goose Island, and this has been under tremendous development by the city. The first mayor, William Ogden, actually dug a channel to help create navigation and created this island in 1853. And as a man-made island, it has been extremely helpful to the city and has been had several uses and has now been redeveloped as both retail and commercial space. As we turn, you're going to see some concrete factories on the left, and they will be down the river as we turn, and you'll see mounds of gravel. And this was a heavy industrial area of the river from about 1850s to about 1980s. However, it has been completely rezoned, and the zoning ordinance now has the city seeking both commercial and residential development in this areas. And so we are expecting mega developments of both residential commercial to be happening here right down by the side of the Chicago Tribune. Now, as we head back, I am going to wait until we get back to the convergence area of Wolf Points. I want you to just take time and spend looking around and look at the contrast that we've talked about regarding the industrial uses versus the newer buildings and the gentrification and revitalization of those older buildings and the contrast it is on how it viewed the river compared to the newer buildings that were built. So take a look at the uses, just enjoy this short segment, and I will meet you on the other side of Wolf Point.